Without any further hesitation, I would like to bring up our special podcast guests for tonight who flew into town to do this special event, our folks from the ReelBlend podcast. I'd like to bring them out right now. Thank you.
Hello, Los Angeles. Hello, New Beverly. I would like to introduce ourselves. I know you guys aren't here for us necessarily, but we're glad that you guys are here with us. We are the ReelBlend podcast. My name is Sean O'Connell. I'm the managing editor at CinemaBlend, and I co-host the show with Kevin McCarthy and Jake Hamilton. We've been doing the show for about 3 years now, and one of the things that I think helps us stand out is that we specialize in doing deep dive conversations with filmmakers that we adore.
And of course, one of those filmmakers is the man who I'm assuming you're all here to see tonight. Yeah, they're definitely not here for us. Now, what's interesting is the first time we had this man we're talking about on our show a couple of years ago, he did that very Hollywood thing. I'm sure everyone in this room has heard it. He said, we should do this again sometime. But unlike a lot of people who say something like that, he actually followed up. So we are beyond thrilled to share our third conversation with this man tonight, live with you.
Yeah. All right, and I want to mention the ReelBlend podcast is honored and privileged to introduce a filmmaker that has been quintessential in all of our film journeys and one of the greatest filmmakers to ever do it in the history of cinema, Mr. Quentin Tarantino.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming out.
Well, Quentin, it's an absolute honor to be with you today. We absolutely love being in your theater. We want to say thank you very much for having us.
Oh, thanks for coming all the way from New York. I really appreciate it.
No, we are honored. And one of the beauties of being here today is this is the day of your book release, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, definitely. We have all read all 400 pages of this book. We think it's one of the greatest, coolest things because it expands on the Hollywood universe in a way that I just was so happy to read. Mm-hmm. One of the things I'm interested in knowing is that throughout your career, you've had film release dates, right?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering in terms of your feelings on the day a film is released versus the day your first book is being released and kind of how you feel in terms of difference in those two elements.
Well, it's drastically less pressure, all right, because books are released on a certain date, and there's that first week that they're out there and they're available. But a book has a year, it has 2 years, it has longer than that to actually do what it's going to do. I know there's a certain amount that when it first drops that there's a thing, but the thing about movies is you work for 2 years on something, you kill yourself, and it all comes down to an opening weekend. It's like the difference between the film being a flop and being a hit is going to be that a bunch of people leave their house and when they can do anything in the world they wanted to do, did they leave their house and go to a movie and sit their ass in a seat and buy a ticket and watch a movie. And it's the difference between a disaster or a success. And things can happen, in today's world, by the fifth week, that's, it's pretty much on its way out of town. Now, that doesn't say that's it as far as a movie's concerned, but as far as it being a successful venture, it is. And so, it's just, it's crazy exciting. I've been waiting for June 29th to happen for about 3 months now, but it just doesn't have that pressure of the difference between success and failure is what happens today.
There's a chapter in the book that everybody is holding, and it's called Misadventure. And I know that people are going to be really looking forward to diving into this one because we learned a lot more about Cliff and what happened on the boat. Last time you talked to us, what may or may not have happened on the boat. Last time we talked to us, you told us that you used that chapter almost in its entirety to lure Brad to do the movie and use that as a basis. So what I was wondering is how much of this book did you actually have written before you even shot a single frame of the movie?
I had the first thing I ever wrote, I started writing this, I wasn't in any hurry to finish it, but I think it was somewhere around after Death Proof. I think I was actually in a hotel in Austin doing press on Death Proof. I take that back, not Austin. I was in a hotel in London doing press on Death Proof when I actually wrote the first things on the book, and it was, I'm sorry not to give you guys my ass here. All right, I think I wrote 3 chapters all in novel form, and it was the Marvin, the opening sequence, the Marvin. It's quite different from what that was, but the Marvin Rick scene. It was the Misadventure chapter, which was much longer in the book in that first incarnation, and the Aldo Ray chapter.
Oh wow!
Yeah, those were the first things I wrote, and then for the next year, I just kept rewriting the Marvin sequence. And then I thought about turning that into a play. And then eventually, about 2 years later, oh, who are you fucking kidding? This is a movie. You can turn it into a movie.
One of the details I love most about your characters is a lot of them are readers. We know Vincent Vega's literally reading moments before he's killed. Rick Dalton's obviously a reader. Yeah. Max Cherry, I think, is reading before he picks up.
He's reading a Len Dayton novel.
Yeah, exactly. So knowing how many of your characters are readers, which of your characters would see this novel at a store and go, yeah, I'm going to read that?
Oh, that's interesting, actually. Well, probably not the 2 guys. I mean, Cliff Booth's not going to read a novelization. He's going to read a Max Brand Western or a Mickey Spillane crime story or something like that. And I don't see Rick buying novelizations. It's hard enough to get Rick to read scripts.
Are there any others for any of your other films though? Would Vincent Vega read this? Would Jules read this book when he's done reading the Bible?
Oh yeah. Well, I don't think most of them are that hip to novelizations. I can actually see. I could see if Vincent Vega saw this movie and liking it and possibly buying it or so. I mean, think about that actually. Let me think. Clarence Worley would buy this book and read it.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
By the way, I do want to mention how much I love the way you released this. When I read this all 400 pages, I love the way it folds. I love the way it turns. It's an incredible experience. One of my favorite chapters in the book is when you discuss Cliff's journey becoming a Kurosawa fan.
Yeah.
I love that particular moment. And I wanted to ask you about that because in the book, you explain that he watches his first 2 films and then he sees Throne of Blood. And there's a moment when he watches Throne of Blood and he goes, I'm officially a fan. Well, I wanted to ask you, sorry, go ahead.
No. Finish your question.
I was just going to say, what do you remember that moment for you for Kurosawa? And do you remember that moment for you with Leone?
Well, not Leone because I remember him. I mean, he's one of my first movie memories where I was seeing Fistful of Dollars and Good and the Bad and the Ugly on a double feature together because my mom was a big fan of Clint Eastwood, so we saw all of his movies at that time. But with Kurosawa, I think it was I'd seen a couple of films. I never took any film classes, but I did actually. There was a community college by my house, and they had a little film history class. And I just showed up one day when they were showing. I knew they were showing it. They were showing Seven Samurai. So the only time I've ever seen Seven Samurai was in this college class on a 16 millimeter print. But it was great. I loved it. So I'd seen a couple of films, but then all of a sudden in Little Tokyo, in that little mall there, they had a little movie theater, and they were having a whole Kurosawa festival. And I think the one for me that did it was Akira.
You remember the moment in that film where you were like...
Yeah, when he has a conversation with the young girl. When he has a conversation with the young girl and she's just so vivacious and full of life. And I recognize the old guy from the Godzilla movies because Instoro Honda and Kurosawa used a lot of the same cast. So a lot of the people from the Kurosawa movies you see in Godzilla and you see in Monster Zero and things like that.
One of the things I love so much about this book is just the insights it gives you into the industry. Clearly from someone who's been in the industry for a really long time. And staying on Kurosawa for a minute, there's a way that it's phrased in this book where he's described as a working man versus a fine artist.
Right, yeah.
Just somebody who was taking gigs, who was working, didn't really realize what he was putting together. I want to know, do you consider yourself a working man or a fine artist?
Well, I consider myself a fine artist that is proud of being able to practice the craft and practice it professionally. And and there's a difference. A fellow or a woman can be an auteur, and they can be an artist, and they can get their point of view across. And if they have a peculiar or particular way of shooting something, they can shoot it. But that doesn't necessarily make them a good filmmaker. the way somebody who gets hired to do somebody who's on television. Okay, where this week they do an episode of NCIS, and the next week they do an episode of Criminal Mind, and the next week after that they do an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine or whatever. Well, those are they're journeymen on one hand, but also they only get work if they're good. They have to actually, they have to plan out their shots, and they have to deliver at the end of the week and deal with all the people. And I actually do think that is a lost art. I think that type of craftsmanship, because the industry is getting so rarefied, and even people who make movies, well, you're probably only making a movie once every 3 years or so, and that's if you're working a lot. So that type of, where some of the directors that we like, some of the older genre directors, they could do 3 movies a year. And so I think that kind of craftsmanship is being lost as time goes on. So I'd like to think that I'm a fine artist that has a craftsmanship journeyman ability.
Sean mentioned the chapter that expands a little bit on the ambiguity involving Cliff and his wife, and it's not the first ambiguity you've ever put in your films. Yeah, right. You think of the Band-Aid on the back of Marcellus Wallace, the briefcase from Pulp Fiction, the diamonds from Reservoir Dogs. If you were to novelize any of the other ambiguities that you've had in your films, which would you have the most fun? Maybe giving us just a little bit more, but then in your own particular style, of course, not going all the way.
Yeah, gosh. Well, I wouldn't tell you about the briefcase. All right.
Two AA batteries and a couple of light
Yeah,
bulbs?
Exactly. Yeah, it's with a yellow.
Worst novel ever.
With a golden gel, all right, attached to a light. Right. Let me think about that. Maybe, I guess, if I were doing a novelization of Reservoir Dogs, it would be interesting to explain exactly what went down at the jewelry store robbery. Yeah. Well, if I was doing Reservoir Dogs, I would. Yeah.
So what went down?
Oh, I haven't written it yet, all right? But I actually do. Me and the actors kind of know what went down, because even though we didn't shoot it in the movie, we had a rehearsal day where we just acted out the robbery, all right? And then so we actually saw what fucking happened.
I hope that's on film somewhere.
No. It was, you had to be in the room.
We're talking about the ambiguities, and I find this really interesting. Obviously, you're not going to answer a lot of those questions in terms of things that he just mentioned in terms of the briefcase, and obviously, I don't want those questions answered.
Yeah, I didn't figure you did.
I just want to enjoy the speculation of it. But in this book, you do dive a lot deeper into that scene with Cliff and his wife, and I wondered why you felt that was one ambiguity you wanted to dive deeper in and give us more answers about, because there's a really interesting element there morally as an audience member as we watch it, where we're going back and forth with, do we like Cliff? Do we not like Cliff? Is he a good person? Is he a bad person? And the beauty of your writing is that he's human. He's a human.
Yeah.
And I wondered why you felt that was one you wanted to give more information about.
Well, I guess partly because I kind of had my fun by not giving the answer as far as the movie was concerned, and it just completely worked out great to just dangle it out there, and the idea that it was. Depending on the choice you made about, did Cliff just accidentally kill his wife, or did he in a moment actually murder his wife, and then following that up with the idea that, okay, he's branded a murder, well, maybe he deserves it and he got away with it, or no, it was just a tragic mishandling of diving equipment, and now he's branded a murderer against, but nobody really knows what the deal is, but he has to live under this shadow. That just worked out great in the movie, and everyone's response was great, and you would hear people both online and just even in person passionately defend that Cliff, no, obviously he didn't do it, it was this, it was that, and then somebody, no, he fucking did it, he totally fucking did it. And
yeah, that was me, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. And we even had situations where it was like in the lobby of theaters after the movie was playing, and they would gather around me and start asking me questions, and I would say, okay, so what do you think? Did Cliff do it? Did he not do it? And you would literally have half the people would say, yes, he did it, and the other half would say, oh, no, of course not, he didn't do it. And one time was even really cool because it was 2 twins. And one of the twins believed he did it, and the other twin, no, he didn't. He couldn't have do it. And they were twins.
You divided a house.
Yeah, I divided the house. So it was one of those things where I was sort of like, well, okay, do I want to ruin all that and say what really happened? Go ahead. I mean, one, I'm writing a book, so you got to say it in a book. I mean, I'm being a chicken shit if I don't say it in the book. And I had my fun with the movie and everything, so it's like it's a new medium, a new thing. So normally I don't like to Normally, if I don't let you know what the deal is, there's a reason. I don't want you to know, and I want you to make it up. But now, in the case of a book, well, okay, I'll tell you.
It's just interesting reading it because then you kind of, it's like a ping pong in your mind going back and forth of whether that whole idea of the moral element of it. It's really fascinating.
Well, even as it is, there's still just a little bit of give and take depending on your point of view.
Well,
only a little bit, but just a little give.
To pull the curtain back just a bit, these two argued about what they read, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
They had different opinions about
It doesn't help. He looks like Brad Pitt, and Brad Pitt would never do that.
Right. Well, that was actually one of my favorite things about it was just the idea that, because people already were just kind of so aboard the Cliff train. And look, I'm aboard the Cliff train right now. I'm aboard the Cliff train. I like the Cliff train. But that became part of the fun of the book was just giving you more, because he's such an enigma in the movie, giving you more backstory about him and like this little thing in his past. It plays like a little short story unto itself, and then another one. But the whole idea was that each time I tell you something more about him, it's more disturbing than the last time.
Yes, especially when you go into the Brandy stuff, which is pretty wild as well. Yeah, the Brandy backstory it's going to blow your minds. It's amazing. Yeah.
Quentin, there's a scene in the movie that hits differently now from when you released it, and that's the Cinerama Dome lighting up at night and coming to life. And here we are in Los Angeles. We're in your own theater. We're all paying very close attention to what happens with that venue. I think it's very personal to all of us. It's one of those theaters that we love to try to come to when we were here. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on, what you hope happens to that? And of course, would you ever buy it?
Wow.
I had to ask.
Yeah. I don't think it's really for sale. All right. I think the idea was to break up the ArcLight and to maybe sell the other theaters. But me and Tim League have been in talks with them a little bit, and they don't seem to be in any. They're not really trying to actively sell the Cinerama Dome or the Hollywood ArcLight. I think they plan on keeping that. I think they just wanted to break up the chain, get out from under their debt. But I think they want to sell the other ArcLight theaters. All right, so they can keep that one.
Okay, gotcha.
One of the interesting things that we learned about all the characters in this book and obviously in the film is that they all have very deep, passionate movie opinions, like everyone in this room does. Yeah. But what's interesting is when I think some of their opinions, specifically Rick Dalton's, disagree with yours. Like Rick Dalton hates spaghetti westerns. So I'm curious about what is the process of writing someone's opinion that is different than yours, and do you have more fun writing for someone who would disagree with you?
Well, it's just kind of he's a product of his time. I mean, the thing is, he's a Western guy. And he talks about it. Well, I mean, sort of. He talks about it. About he grew up. He grew up in the late 30s, early 40s. So he grew up going to the Gower Gulch Saturday matinees at the movie theaters, watching Lash LaRue, watching Hoot Gibson, watching guys like that. So that's his idea of Westerns. Randolph Scott movies and Rory Calhoun movies. Those are his ideas of Westerns. And but that was similar to that's similar to James Best or Dub Taylor or Harry Carey Jr. or a lot of these guys. They were very rarefied in their the Americana attached to the West. So they were just out and out xenophobic about the idea of spaghetti westerns. I mean, they thought it was just ridiculous. I mean, they absolutely ridiculous that these Italians would dare to think they could make westerns. I mean, what the fuck is up with that? And because culturally they just didn't get it. They didn't understand it. So it was just so they rejected it out of hand. And and like Rick, maybe they saw one, maybe they saw two, and that's it. That's exactly it. That's it. Oh, they're all awful. Oh, they're all terrible. and now not everybody felt that way. I mean, Lee Van Cleef really liked making them, and like John Ireland went down there and made more money than John Ireland ever made in America, just making movies in Italy. A lot of guys kind of fell in that way, but they thought TV was bad enough with their bum rush schedule. But like, oh Jesus Christ, well TV's even better than that shit. They're just but it's just they're just culturally out of step. They can't see that it's a new thing, But they wouldn't have responded to McCabe and Mrs. Miller either. That's just not their thing.
Switching gears here, I was rewatching Jackie Brown the other day, which, as I watch it more and more, it's a timeless masterpiece. The shot of her in the airport is just incredible. But one thing I was interested in knowing when I was watching it was, I believe it's the only feature of yours you shot on 185.
Yeah.
And I was looking at, like, obviously everything you've done has been like generally 239. I think Reservoir Dogs was 235, and obviously Hateful Eight was
all the 235 except for like Hateful Eight, which was like
276.
Yeah, 276. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about why Jackie Brown was 185, the only movie of yours that you shot in that taller ratio. I'm wondering in terms of what you wanted to get across and kind of why that was the one you wanted.
That's a good question. I didn't want it to be an epic. I was coming after Pulp Fiction, so I wanted to go underneath the success of Pulp Fiction. And to me, 235 suggests epic, and I didn't want it to be an epic. And also, I didn't want it to take place in my world, and I knew my world would probably always primarily deal with scope. And so I wanted it to, it's the only movie that I think, I worked hard to make it in Elmer Leonard's world and not my world. And so I thought it would just have a different ratio. And also the blaxploitation movies I was jumping off on, very, very few of them were ever shot on scope. Most of them were shot 185.
Didn't you say that Jackie Brown is a movie that your characters would go see?
Oh yeah, no, they would. Yeah, some of them would definitely go see it. Yeah.
Did you also shoot 185 because you shot digitally for Rodriguez's Sin City, that section with Del Toro and Clive Owen? That was 185 as well.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah,
because the whole movie was. I was just curious.
It's one scene. Yeah, but yes, I'm sure that was 185.
Cool.
There's a moment late in the book, and this isn't a spoiler, but it is something sort of surreal that when I read it, I had to reread it twice. Quentin Tarantino is in the book. Yeah. It's about as
it's like
unusual.
1969, circa 1969, Tarantino. Yeah.
Please tell me the thought process of putting yourself into the book, and I'm wondering if that version of Quentin Tarantino ever worked with Rick.
Well, okay. I'll hold the second one for later. Second part of your question. Where that happened was, I'm not just in it, but my stepfather, Kurt Zaspel, is in it. He's the piano bar musician at the.
Oh, that's cool.
What they're talking about is there's a chapter where in the book, when Rick gets through with this Lancer episode for the day, Jim Stacy asks if he want to go out and have a drink, and so they go to this bar by where Jim Stacy lives in San Gabriel called the Drinkers Hall of Fame. And it's just like, all these famous Hollywood drunks. Posters are all over the wall. And my stepfather at that time, Kurt Zaspel, was a piano bar musician in and around East LA and the San Gabriel area. I remember he worked at some really cool sounding bars. I mean, there was the Drinkers Hall of Fame. There was my old Kentucky home. Really cool places. We had the matchbooks for everything. But anyway, that was a real bar that he worked at. And before I started school, since he worked at night and my mom was a nurse working during the day, he took care of me during the day. So I was with him all day long before I started preschool or kindergarten. And he took me everywhere. He would he went to go visit some friends. He'd take me along with him. He went to go have lunch with some buddies at a diner. He took me along with him. He did he just always took me. And so, so I've been to the Drinkers Hall of Fame a few different times. I mean, a couple of times, never at night, but I mean, a couple of times my mom did take me to one of his bars at night to watch him play, watch him sing. And one time he brought me on stage. It was behind his piano. And he goes, "Hey, my son's in the room. He's 3 years old. Come on up here, Quentin." And he put me on his lap and he played some song. And then the story goes that when they tried to take me away, I started crying. It's I like being by the microphone. I like being in the light. And I started to have a temper tantrum when they tried to.
Things have changed.
Yeah, when they tried to pull me off the stage. But I remember the Drinkers Hall of Fame really well because he would stop by every once in a while during the day to pick up his check. So I'd see it when it was like really kind of cash, for like 1 in the afternoon, and it was just all regulars. Hey, Kurt, how you doing, or whatever. But like I looked at every poster, and I mean, there's some people I didn't know who they were until I saw them in the Drinkers Hall of Fame. Like, who's that? Oh, that's Martha Ray. All right. And I go, oh, was she a drunk? Well, yeah, she had a drinking problem.
That is the greatest name for a bar, by the way. That is a phenomenal name.
So anyway, so in the piece, it was easy to remember the place, and I thought that it was a cool place to set a scene. I put Kurt in the story. Even the actor Warren Vanders, who's a real actor. Well, he was a friend of my dad's, and he came down. Actually, the first dog I ever got was a puppy given to me by Warren Vanders. All right, and so it just came up that as I was writing it. I'm referred to by my stepfather, all right, as I'm a fan of Rick Dalton, because we both were fans. The thing is in the book is I'm a fan of 14 Fists of McCluskey, and
what a picture.
Yeah. And apparently there's so he mentions, oh yeah, well, there was a rerun of Bounty Law on TV the other day, and I pointed like it was the kind of thing that my stepdad would do. He pointed him, hey Quentin, hey Quint, that call me Quint. Hey Quint, see that guy right there, that cowboy on Bounty Law? Yeah. Well, that's the guy with the eye patch and the flamethrower from 14 Fists of McCluskey. Really? That's him? Yeah, that's him. So that was before he lost his eye. But there was a couple of times I remember my dad coming home during the night, and he some cool actor that I knew of came into the bar and he got an autograph for me. So in real life, the Rick Dalton autograph would be a Leonard Nimoy autograph. Wow. But it was like on a Drinkers Hall of Fame, a cocktail napkin.
That's awesome.
So Quentin, you can't go on Bill Maher and drop a bomb like I was thinking of remaking Reservoir Dogs and not expect us to bring it up. I'm genuinely curious. You said you're not going to do it, but if it was enough to bring it up, that snowball must have been rolling down the mountain a little bit. I'm curious as to how far into the process did you actually get with this idea, and what the fuck were you going to do? Like, how was that going to work?
Well, I didn't get that far in it, but it was I've decided if I wanted to do something like that, I would do it more on stage, and I think that would be cool.
That'd be a great stage play.
Yeah, but my thought process was, well, if it's a strong piece of material, it would work doing it anytime. It does seem timeless, and then just with a new group of actors, it would have a new life, and it would have a new life by the fact that I didn't really know what the hell I was doing when I did Reservoir Dogs, and now I know what I'm doing a little bit more. It'd be interesting to, I won't have the youthful exuberance that I had with it, but we'll see how much that accounts for anything. I think I was thinking at the time when I was considering doing it as a movie, making it an all-black cast. That's what I think that would have been my twist on it, as far as making it a different movie.
Were there any actors in particular that you were thinking, oh, it'd be really cool to see this person as Mr. Pink or Mr. Brown?
No, I don't think I took
White?
it that. I don't think I took it that far. I think part of the idea that would have been open up would be just see who responded to it and to figure it out that way.
But it's absolutely not happening.
No, I'm not going to do it. I'll probably do it on stage at some point, but not
awesome.
Not as.
Do you know anyone we know that can get tickets?
Yeah.
Quentin,
I'll hook you up.
Last time we talked, we had a 2.5-hour conversation. We were in New York. We were talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And after the conversation was over, we were just talking about other people's movies and just like geeking out about the top 10 films of the decade and Social Network and films like that. And I went back and found an interview you did where you were talking about how much you loved Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk. And that's one of my favorite movies of all time. And what you said about it was exactly how I felt about it. So a couple of weeks ago, I think even last week, New Beverly showed a 35mm film print of Tenet. Yeah. And I have not heard your thoughts on Tenet. And I was just curious what you thought of the film, because you had such a passionate discussion about Dunkirk. Tenet was an incredible experience. I'm just curious where you were on that movie.
I think I need to see it again.
With subtitles?
Yeah. I think I need to see it again. But even that sounds like a cop-out chicken shit answer. All right. And it is. All right. But to be fair, I don't think I really saw Dunkirk until I saw it the third time. I mean, the first time I saw it, I didn't know what to make of it. I enjoyed it, but it was almost such a big experience that I don't even think I kind of thought of it as a movie. It was I mean, it wasn't until I even saw it the third time that I even realized they were going back in time all the time. I mean, it was just kind of such an overloading, bombastic experience that it took me at least 2 full times into the third time, before I could actually see the movie that I was watching, because I was just so dealing with the sensation of it all.
Cool. This is a question that I asked these guys whether they thought it was going to happen, and it kind of shocked them, so I have to ask it to you. You infamously number your films, and to the point where one of the times I had to ask you is Kill Bill 1 movie or 2? Of course, we had that conversation.
Yeah. 1 movie.
It's 1 movie.
For your next film, will the title card actually say The Last Film by Quentin Tarantino?
That's my plan. That's my plan, is to like The Last Film by Quentin, at least in the opening credit, at least in the trailer, but I think probably in the movie, yeah.
Oh, so you've thought about that?
Yeah, no, I've thought about it. No, I never miss an opportunity to mythologize myself.
So we are 2 years out of Hollywood. Around the time frame that you normally do sort of announce what your next film is going to be about. I'm not going to ask you what it is, but do you know what your next film is about?
No, I don't have a clue.
Okay. With that being said, how much will the idea of this is my last movie dictate what kind of movie it's going to be?
Well, it'll stop it from being something frivolous, you know. It'll stop me from like, hey, that's a good book. Why not do that? All right, you know.
Does R-rated Star Trek fall under that umbrella?
Yeah, Star Trek falls under that umbrella, you know. You know, so like, there's a lot, you know, but that, you know, now would be the time in the career where I would do that good book just because it would make a good movie. If I were like to be, you know, I guess somebody, you know, a normal trajectory. Well, okay, no, I got 3 more movies. I have 4 more movies, or whatever the time is. I don't even know. I have 1 more movie. That's the way life is. All right, we've just learned that this year. So that nips all those ideas in the bud. So it'll, you know, 99% be an original, and I could change my mind on this. I could absolutely change my mind on this, but I don't see me like trying to out epic Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I kind of like the idea. I could change my mind, but I kind of like the idea of that being like the last big epic, and the last one kind of being more of a autumnal epilogue-y kind of, you know, the epilogue at the end of a big book.
Would it be like intimate, like Reservoir Dogs?
Well, yeah, I don't even. Well, epilogue doesn't necessarily can mean intimate, but doesn't necessarily mean to be intimate. It's not. You know, I'm not trying to outdo everything else. It's not trying to be a big epic. Unless I did Kill Bill 3, then it would have to be. Then it would be my Lola Montez. It had to be the best movie, or the whole career is a failure.
Is that a possibility?
It's a possibility. All right. Yeah. Since I don't know, it's a possibility.
Was it Zendaya that said that she wanted to play the daughter?
Yeah.
Vivica A. Fox's
Vivica's daughter. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to see that story. That would be amazing.
And you've got Maya out there ready to go as BB. It could be really terrific.
But then that's going to bring up the whole argument where now we're going to have the conversation about is Kill Bill 3
he's
movies?
calling
Is
it
it 2
Kill Bill
movies? Is it 1
3.
movie?
Well, that's the idea. Just keep throwing bait out there, all right? And see who bites. All right.
Quentin, my experience with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was interesting because I loved the film when I first saw it, but I fell in love with it on my 3rd viewing when I saw it in 70 millimeter at the ArcLight. Like, it was like the most astounding experience, and now it's really my favorite movie of yours. I've seen it over 20 times. That's the one I put on the most. I put it on just to listen to the soundtrack a lot. One of my favorite elements of that film is that moment when Rick is kind of giving pushback to the director about his costume that he has to wear in Lancer, and in the book you dive into that a lot more. It's a really, really great scene. I was wondering, through the course of your career, what actors have given you pushback in terms of costumes that you've had those conversations with, and then they realized later on, oh, this was a really good idea?
Well, the one that I'm the most delightful to recount, Uma hated the yellow tracksuit.
What?
Fucking hated it. Didn't get it. Thought she looked like a popsicle. All right, a banana popsicle. She was just not into it. Had no idea who the fuck Bruce Lee was, practically. All right. I finally had to show her Game of Death. She sort of kind of got it, but now since then it's become this totally iconic thing. And she probably doesn't even remember it. But she's like, "You're trying to make me look like a fucking clown."
Did you have a conversation with her kind of like the director has with Rick, where you were like, listen, this is the idea? Because obviously with Rick, he's like, well, people aren't going to see me, right? And
I wasn't as nice as Sam Wanamaker was. Like, you're going to wear the fucking tracksuit, all right? I know what I'm talking about. You don't know what you're talking about, and that's what time it is.
Well, it was obviously the right move. That's funny.
Quinn, this is a topic that's kind of near and dear to my heart, and I would love to get your take on it because it was a pretty big conversation that we had on the ReelBlend podcast. Often is that quite often you have total control over your films and the cut that's going to get released. But there was a filmmaker, Zack Snyder, who had a movie called Justice League, and it took his fans 3 years to fight to get his version of it restored. What were you thinking when you heard that whole thing going on about a studio keeping that cut or preventing them from seeing it, and then the boon of streaming, allowing something like that to even come out? I just wanted to hear your thoughts about that as it was going on.
Well, I haven't seen it because I don't have HBO Max, but that's something I'd like to see.
I'll give you my login.
Yeah. That's something I would like to see. I never saw I never saw when it was at the theaters, but I'd be kind of curious to see if his 4-hour, his original vision on that. No, I actually thought that was really groovy, and I actually thought the fans were really groovy. That the fact that they kept persisting on it and everything. I think, didn't he do something like that with also Watchmen as well?
Yeah, there was a director's cut of Watchmen, but it wasn't like as fan driven as
Yeah.
this.
This was like the fans demanded it kind of thing. I think that's really groovy. I mean, I've made it a practice that my director's cut plays in 3,000 cinemas on opening weekend.
Would you be willing to release the longer version of? Because I remember Margot Robbie did an interview recently where she talked about there was like a 4 or 5 hour cut of this. Like
she was exaggerating.
I know, but that could be like a. Would you consider
Everyone
doing
in this room would watch a 4 or 5 hour cut?
Would
of
you
that
do
movie.
like a Netflix chapter thing like you did with Hateful?
No, I did that for Hateful Eight, but I wouldn't. I don't think this would necessarily work better as a chapter kind of thing. The film has kind of passed on. It's become pretty popular, and people seem to really like it and everything. So I'm sure Tom Rothman would be totally down with the idea at some point, especially with the book coming out and everything out there. Where now people read the book. I can see sometime in the next couple of years or something, more or less just cutting together a cut of the movie if I didn't care about time. If like time, not saying I'm going to use everything I shot, because everything I shot probably doesn't need to be in the movie. But if I was just cutting together like my what I would think would be the ultimate version of the movie, and I didn't have to worry about time whatsoever, I can see us like cutting together a cut of the movie that way and just releasing it in theatrically in a boutique kind of situation.
That's awesome.
It would probably be something like that would probably be like 3 hours and 20 minutes or something like that.
Oh, wow.
I'm there.
There's a great moment, an expansion in the book where Sharon Tate is going to go to the box office and kind of talk her away into seeing Wrecking Crew. Yeah. And the girl in the box office says, "Oh, you're much prettier in person." Yeah. And the narrator kicks in and says, "Listen, if you ever meet an actor, do not tell them that they look better in person." Yeah. Which, as a guy on local news, it's also a thing not to say.
Yeah, right.
Because we're very insecure people. What is a thing, if someone meets a director in the street, what is a thing not to say to you?
Can I take a picture?
Well, okay, well that's not primarily to a director. All right. Don't tell me the movie I did you didn't like because I didn't ask you. If I ask you, you can tell me. If I didn't ask you, who fucking asked you?
How often does that happen?
Not that often, but every once in a while somebody wants to be a smart ass or thinks they're cutting edge or punk rock by, shitting on something you've done.
In the book, you actually reference this when we're in Polanski's house, and there's a poster on the wall of the film that Polanski and Sharon Tate made. Obviously, Rick has posters in his house. I was curious, do you actually have any posters of your works in your house? Like, is there a Pulp Fiction or a Reservoir Dogs poster? Like, because I love the commentary.
I got too many cool posters to put up, the posters from my movies. I do have. But that's a lie though. I actually. For a long, long time, I don't think it's there anymore. No, it's not there. It's not there now. But for a long time, I had a really cool Japanese poster for Pulp Fiction over my fireplace, which was an interesting design, and it had the palm door gold leaf from Cannes, and it was signed by Shintaro Katsu, who played Zatoichi, and his Japanese calligraphy looks like Zatoichi. All right, it looks like a little monk guy, you know, with the robe and the little staff. And it was fucking amazing. All right, so to have like this original Japanese, really groovy Japanese poster, and then have like it signed by Zatoichi was pretty terrific.
By the way, if you walk right past the poster that's in the lobby, there's a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood poster that has zombies on it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's one of those Guyana, posters. Oh no, okay, I take that back. Actually, I have. It's not officially mine, but I have the kind of like those hand painted Guyana posters for Inglourious Basterds, but it's not mine. It's the Bo Svensson Inglourious Basterds, but it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's very cool.
That's cool. What other posters do you have in your house? Out of curiosity, if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, I have a big Italian poster of Sergio Corbucci's Hellbenders, Il Crule, all right, in Italy. In my living room, I have the living room is where I have all my Western posters. So I have a big Italian one for Sam Peckinpah's Junior Bonner. I have Lee Van Cleef's The Big Gun Down. And I'm a big fan of William Whitney, so I have a plastered on the wall. I have his very first movie, a movie called The Painted Stallion. I have a poster for that. I have a poster for his movie Arizona Raiders with Audie Murphy, and then also I have a bunch of really cool Spanish posters. Some of them drawn by the Spanish illustrator Jano, who's like the king of the Spanish posters, and they're really neat. And I have them like literally glued to the wall as if they're fly posted, as if it's like they're like fly posted in an alley. And then I have this one corridor going down my house, all right, that I call my Polish corridor, and that's where all my Polish posters are like plastered to the wall.
That's amazing. Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
We are in a weird spot in the industry where a lot of filmmakers who are your colleagues are dealing with something called the day and date. Mm-hmm. Their movies are opening in theaters, and they're also available on streaming. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you're getting out before this becomes an issue, but what are your thoughts on this as an option?
I think it's depressing. One, I think it's depressing. Two, I'm glad that I'm working with Sony that doesn't deal with that. They haven't gone down that route. But also, it just really makes me think about 2019 when we came out with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It really makes me think that, wow, myself and Joker and 1917, it was like, we were birds that just like flew through a windowsill just as the window was slamming shut, and practically got our tail feathers, caught in the slam, but we got out in time. And I mean, just to put it bluntly, it's like, okay, so a movie like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood made something like $346 million or something like that. Okay. Well, the idea that a movie like that could come out around the world and make that much money only by asses and seats. No streaming revenue was attached to that, no DVDs, and any other ancillary markets were attached to that number. That is literally people leaving their house, going to a theater, buying a ticket, and putting their ass in a seat and watching the movie. I don't know when that's going to happen again. I think it might, but I don't know when. I know a movie now couldn't do that. It couldn't do that this year.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask. Like, do you think it's now that box has been, or Pandora's box has been opened, where the studios can get those revenues from different places, is it almost impossible to put the genie back in the bottle? I'm using every metaphor I have.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, but when you have, if you have, I don't know if Paramount's doing it, but I know Warner Brothers is doing it. But like, if you've got these studios just embracing that, well, then that's what time it is. That is the industry you're looking at now.
You know, everyone in this room has an opinion about pop culture. That's why we're all here. And a lot of us like a lot of the same stuff that is kind of heralded by a lot of people. Obviously, a lot of us love your films. But every person in this room loves something that their friends kind of give them shit for. Like, how do you like that? My thing is, I really like Big Bang Theory. Like all my friends make fun of me for it. At one point, they do the dance from Pulp Fiction. I think it's great. My grandma watches it. It's a whole deal. So I'm curious, what is the thing within pop culture that you love that your friends give you shit for?
Oh gosh, I have a few things. Now, normally my whole thing is that that if I like it, then I'm not embarrassed by it. I can defend it against all comers. But is
it Big Bang Theory?
Well, I do like Big Bang Theory. All right, but I usually watch that on an airplane. All right, I literally will spend like 2.5 hours just watching every episode of The Big Bang Theory, and then I figure out what else I'm going to watch. See, everything I'm going to say sounds too legit. Okay, I'm not ashamed of this. I'm not ashamed of this. Okay.
What are you going to say?
Okay, Elvis Mitchell also likes this guy too, but particularly there's one critic from Cahiers du Cinema, and we've really bonded. I'm a big fan of that romantic comedy guy, Mark Lawrence, the guy who does all the Hugh Grant movies. Oh, yeah. And I think he's a terrific writer, and he writes great for Hugh Grant. And Hugh Grant's terrific in it, and I like to see who the girl's going to be in this time. You know, I really like that one rewrite that was the last one he did with Marissa Tomei. But I think that guy's fantastic. In fact, I remember, I think Music and Lyrics is his masterpiece. And I remember actually, I was like watching music. I didn't see it at the theaters. I saw it on an airplane, and then it landed like the 20 minutes before the movie was over. And so then I immediately went to Amoeba and bought the Music and Lyrics DVDs so I could see how it ended.
That's awesome.
But I think that guy's great.
We went to Amoeba today to try to buy your book, and it was sold out.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Well done.
We love Amoeba.
Oh, I haven't. You had a second part to your question that I never asked. Okay.
Did Quentin work with Rick?
Did Quentin work? Well, Quentin did work with Trudy. We know that. All right.
You know that.
Okay.
Yes.
Quentin worked with Trudy.
Oscar nominated.
Oscar, her final Oscar nomination. All right, her first one, only one for lead actress.
That's right.
Naturally. All right. Quentin never worked with Rick, but I did meet Rick. All right. Rick retired around 1988 or so, and he moved to Hawaii with Francesca. The marriage lasted, by the way. All right.
Contrary to what Cliff thought.
Contrary to Cliff, that just shows you what Cliff knows. All right.
There's a romantic in the audience.
Yeah. So like they retired and they moved to Honolulu or the Big Island or something like that. They moved to Hawaii, and then I went to Hawaii in like 1996 for the Hawaii International Film Festival. And while I was there, they said, well, is there anybody on the island you want to meet? Don Ho, this one, that one, Rick Dalton. They go, whoa, Rick Dalton. Rick Dalton lives in Hawaii? Yeah, he lives in Hawaii. So then I met him and we had lunch and it was a great time. And I told him I had some different film prints of some of his TV shows and some of his movies. So then the next year I came back and curated a little Rick Dalton festival at the Hawaii International Film Festival.
I love that you have all these details.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Well, it's not just me yanking it out of my butt right now. I don't know if I'm going to publish it. I might publish it, but I actually wrote a book called The Films of Rick Dalton.
Oh,
you know how they have those books, like the films of Charles Bronson, the films of Anthony Quinn. Okay, well, I did a whole because I wanted to know everything Rick did. I wanted to know every TV show he ever guested on. I wanted to know every movie he ever did, and so I just ended up writing the films of Rick Dalton, and just so I would know. And I have it, and HarperCollins wants to publish it. I go, okay, well, I'm might be writing this Once Upon a Time in the Hollywood Train to death. All right, so let's see after the cinema book if there's still an audience for it. But I did figure everything out.
It reminds me a little bit of a story that I heard from Nicholas Hammond, who talks about the fact that you adored his Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah. I thought he was great as Spider-Man. Yeah.
And that he said you were like in England one time and you found original canisters of the pilots or the
Oh, no. We found out, because they got released theatrically in England. And so we found somebody who actually had, we showed it here at the New Beverly. Yeah. We found somebody who had a 35 millimeter print of the theatrical, or either, I don't think it was a pilot. I think it was like just a 2-part episode that they released as a feature. And so we screened it, and like we totally didn't have the rights for it or anything. And so we showed it with like Spider-Man 2, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 2. We didn't have rights, we didn't have shit. And so like we were kind of like sweating bullets a little bit. And then Stan Lee was still alive, and then Stan Lee kind of posted a picture of the marquee and like, yes, Spider-Man, both versions are playing at the New Beverly. Glory, glory, hallelujah.
Excelsior.
And I go, hey, I'm considering that being indemnified. All right.
Quentin, this is a random transition, but one of my favorite things in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a 3 or 4 second shot when you light Taco Bell up. Oh, yeah. And I think I really, my wife and I's first date was Taco Bell. We are still married today, and we had Taco Bell delivered to our wedding, so it was a big deal for me personally. But I don't think people realize, well, I think they do, how much work goes into that one little shot. In the terms of production. And I wondered if you could speak on rebuilding a 1969 Taco Bell, how much work went into that, and the idea of like any filmmaker could do that with CGI, but you were like, I want to do this in camera. Even going back to the drive-in shot, John Dykstra, you did the miniature cars versus having like CGI there. Yeah. But can you talk about just a simple shot like Taco Bell one and how much work went into that?
He's not joking. He loves Taco Bell.
I do.
Yeah.
I also want to know your Taco Bell order if you.
Well, yeah. Well, it's interesting because I mean they're getting less and less and less and less and less as time goes on, but. That was one of the things that you could see in Los Angeles, like as the 70s turned in the 80s and the 80s turned in the 90s. It's like, oh, that's like one of the old Taco Bells. And now it's like, Marvin's Mexican food or something like that, or, Marvin's burritos or something. Or like, I remember in the South Bay, right by Old Town, where it used to be Discount Auto Parts, and you could tell that used to be an old Roy Rogers family restaurant, and it had the big spur outside and everything. And, but especially the places that had, particular, architecture like Taco Bell or Der Wiener Schnitzel or places like that. You can see, oh, okay, so they sold the building, and then the guy, doesn't want to have a Der Wiener Schnitzel, but he turns it into something else. And so I had the location manager go out and look. I go, look, I know there's a couple places around here like that, so why don't you find them? Well, he found the last of the official Taco Bells that were still done in that 1969 mission, complete mission style with a bell in the middle. And it was something else, all right, by that point, but they didn't tear it down, so it still had the whole mission thing. So they rented it to us, and we restored it back to its Taco Bell style. And same thing with the Der Wiener Schnitzel. It was something else. All right, and they had a yellow roof, so we painted the roof red, the way like a Der Wiener Schnitzel in blue, and we added all the stuff back. And goes, yeah, we still had all that stuff like for the last 6 years in storage, and we just threw it away because we know we're never going to use it. All right, so but they all, in both cases, they all had all the exact architecture, all the right things were there. They were just like different pieces of plastic saying something different.
All that work for a 3 or 4 second shot.
It's like my feeling. Somebody asked me the other day, would I do something that would rely a lot on CGI? And well, look, yeah, I can imagine doing a movie that takes place on a spaceship. Maybe. I mean, I don't really imagine myself doing that, but it's not inconceivable if I had the right story. Like, I can imagine myself doing Alien, conceivably. All right,
confirmed. Quentin Tarantino does Alien.
Yeah. But it is one of those things where if it's not there on the day and I'm actually shooting it with my camera, it just doesn't count. Yep. It's cheating. It doesn't count. It just doesn't fucking count. My first AD who's in the audience there, Bill Clark. Bill Clark, stand up, say hello to everybody. Say hello to the finest people. he has a great saying when they talk about like, okay, is there a second camera? Is there going to be second unit? Well, there's never a second unit, and if there's a second camera, I'm operating the second camera. And Bill has a response, and it fits into the CGI thing. Any shot in my movie that's not framed by me is what's your exact term? Any shot in my movie that's not framed by me is inadequate by its very definition. So the thing is, if you go see one of my movies, every single shot, whether it's a big deal shot or a 360 or an insert of a spoon, I framed it. I framed it. Bob lit it, but I framed it, and that's my framing. And and Bob wants to shoot my framing. If Bob was framing it, he would frame it different. But he's not there to do his thing. He's like, no. I'm here to do Quentin's framing. I want Quentin stuff. And if it gets less severe, he's like, what the fuck is this shit? All right, this could be anybody doing it. What's like, I want the straight on shit. What's going on? This is not a Quentin movie.
Exactly.
Thank you for answering that.
I want to go back to the book.
Yeah, so just say a little further, one other thing. Yeah, so like, if I were doing a monster movie, I want a guy in a suit. Yeah. I want a puppet, or I want a guy in a suit, or I want some animatronic thing. I don't want to add the octopus later. No, the octopus has got to be on the fucking set. There can be 9 guys making his arms move, but it's like, it's a thing.
How are you getting a shot of Cliff driving through the roads far away from it? And we see Brad Pitt's face weaving in and out of traffic. Are you doing that practically?
Oh, yeah. It was Brad driving.
Unbelievable. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. The insurance people at Sony must have loved you.
Yeah. He wasn't doing anything too terribly dangerous.
He's going pretty quick, though, going through that traffic.
No, he was. He's a good driver, man. He's a speedy little fucker.
For people who didn't listen to our most recent conversation with Quentin, there's a line that we quote often, and it's when the camera goes up over the drive-in screen, and there's the cars that you see as Cliff is driving home. And John Dykstra, the great John Dykstra, suggested digital cars, and Quentin said, no, I want them to be models, essentially. And as John pushed, Quentin said, John, you'll know that they're digital, and I'll know that they're digital, and that's enough. And I thought that was great.
Yeah. He was like, well, that's kind of a waste. Like, Johnny, you're going to know the difference, and I'll know the difference. And then, okay, so he goes, okay, of course, I see that. And then all of a sudden, like, he had one like moving and backing out and getting into space. Like, what's that? And he goes, well, if we're gonna fucking put like Matchbox cars down there, one of them's got to move, or what the fuck are we doing? I mean, we're gonna do it. Let's fucking do it.
I want to come back to the book because there's a character who you spend a lot more time with, and that's Charles Manson. Talked about getting into the headset of Manson, essentially, to write the longer pieces that you did for the book. And one in particular is the scene of Manson coming up to the house on Cielo Drive. Yeah. That's very brief in the movie, but has a lot of motivation in the book. And I can't understand how you cut that out of the movie. Like, seems to be a very important character development. It must be really hard for you to not include the movie.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was tough to lose it, especially the little ooga booga dance, that he does, because that and Brad's still like, where the fuck is that going? All right, and especially because it seems to cap off that sequence, and that seems like the kind of sequence you'd want to cap off. But part of the thing about if you've got a long movie that's like you're dealing with 2 hours and 40 minutes and everything, it's like you're constantly dealing with pace. Especially if you're dealing with, it's one thing if you're just following Vin Diesel doing this and doing that and doing this and doing that and doing this. But if you've got like, okay, you have this guy over here and then that guy over here and then this woman over here and maybe a couple of other people. And so you're just kind of hopping from one story to another and then to back to this story and then back to this one and back to that one. It's a balancing act. So you don't wear out the audience's welcome. And so, they're with you. They're where they want to be at any given time. So and how I know that, I don't. It's just it's you're the filmmaker, you're the author, so you have a unconnected zeitgeist to where the audience is coming from, and you just kind of know it. You can't explain it, but you know it. So yeah, I could have had that Ooga Booga dance at the end of the Manson scene, and nobody would say, well, what's that there? No, it would make sense and they would like it. But the next scene coming after that is the Rick and Trudy scene. Yeah. And I was afraid that I needed to get out of the Rick scene, the Cliff scene when I did. I needed to start Trudy scene. And the idea is, so you don't all of a sudden, okay, now that scene is seeming too long. Maybe not at the beginning, but maybe in the middle. And so that's what you're always kind of dealing with. It's not about losing something that, people would be fine with that, but it's going to affect something 3 scenes later. And now they're all of a sudden feeling the thing is long in the tooth. You just have to kind of, especially if you're hopping from one story to toward the other. When I go back to Rick, you've got to want to be there. And then hopefully I'm pulling you out and also there is a thing about pulling you out just a little bit before you want to go.
There is a term that you use in the book that I only know what it means because of you. Mm-hmm. And that term is Pulp Fiction. Yeah. And in fact, when I read those 2 words together in the book, I was like, oh, that's fucking cool. And I just want to talk about the idea that, I know for you've said I didn't go to film school. I watched film. Like you worked in the video store, like you were educated. For many of us in this room, we've been educated on the classics and on different film terminology by growing up on your films. Mm-hmm. And I just want to talk about sort of what that means to you, to not have just entertained us, but you've also and I hope you don't take this in a weird way, like you've been a teacher for a lot of us. I didn't know what Pulp Fiction meant until you.
Right, yeah. Until a soft, moist mass of matter. Yeah, the New Heritage edition. Okay, not Webster's, all right? That just happened to be like the dictionary that was at the house
There's
at
only
the time.
one Bible quote that I know by heart.
Yeah,
that's because of you too.
Which I rewrote liberally. All right.
I get it wrong whenever I try to quote it out loud.
Yeah. No, it's incredibly gratifying, and I've had a lot of people come up to me, and I've overheard people talk about it. I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, things like, "Well, yeah, it's because of you that I started watching Shaw Brothers movies," or "It's because of you I started watching the Hong Kong movies," or "Oh, wow, okay, well he likes this, he likes Miss 45. Well, I'll give that a shot. Whoa, that's fantastic. Let me watch King of New York." So I've had a lot of people, and I think they're especially back in the 90s because, I did a lot of talking about that because I kind of saw myself as an ambassador for B movies and exploitation movies, or like genre or visceral movies, as opposed to talking about House of Seven Gables or Citizen Kane or How Green Was My Valley or anything like that. I wanted to push that kind of stuff, and I think there was an aspect. There was a whole lot of young people who saw those first couple of movies, and they didn't have any reference for it. It was new to them. So then I would talk, and then I would say, well, hey, if you like this, then look at this, and if you like that, look at that, and so they wanted to see more stuff like that. So they went down those rabbit holes. And there's even people that I hear on podcasts that don't like me at all anymore, but they go, but I got to say, when I was 19, he taught me all the shit that I love. But I think there was a thing like in the case of, like, say, Reservoir Dogs, where that's one of the reasons why it did so well internationally was, it wasn't very much like an American gangster film. It was kind of flying in the face of like the Scorsese type of gangster films. But it was very much like a Japanese Yakuza movie. And that's how they looked at it in Japan. They go, oh, wow, he must be a big fan of Yakuza films, because, you put Japanese people in it, this could be a Yakuza movie tomorrow. And the same thing with the Hong Kong film industry. Oh, well, this is like a triad movie. You put Chow Yun-fat in there, so it's absolutely a triad movie. And it's the same thing like the Fernando de Leo Italian movies. Or the same thing with like the Jean-Pierre Melville French films. So rather than being connected to American crime film, which I am connected to American crime films, but like particularly Reservoir Dogs seemed like associated with like the foreign model of gangster movies.
Quentin, last time we spoke with you, you were about to become a father. Mm-hmm. Now you are a father. Congratulations to you, by the way.
And little Leo gets a shout out. Great.
Little Leo. Who's not named after DiCaprio, by the way. I saw your Kimmel
The
interview.
lion. I thought that was the greatest answer. That was fantastic.
That was cool.
That was beautiful.
But one of the things I asked you last time was, how do you think fatherhood will change you as a creative artist and a director? And at the time, you hadn't become a father yet, so you weren't entirely sure. You were thinking about limitations in terms of traveling and making the films you want to make. Now that you have a child, I'm curious, do you feel at all different creatively as an artist? Do you feel differently in terms of what you want to say as a director and maybe the films you want to make or write continuing forward?
Nah, he has nothing to do with any of that, you know? It's going to take him at least 7 years, all right, you know, to see what his dad's done.
Oh, which one will you show?
Which one do you want to show?
At most 7 years, all right? At most 7 years. There'll be a couple of, you know, if he's inclined, I'll show him Kill Bill at 5, all right? Yeah, there's a cartoon in it. It's perfect. All right, yeah.
You would show them to your son out of order?
What?
You would show them out of order to your son?
Well, yeah, no, it'll be no. I figured, yeah, of course, you know, yeah, it'd be whatever he would be. Whatever's the first one he's right for, all right, that like would ring his bell. I think, yeah, for a kid, yeah, Kill Bill's got to be the one to to start with. You know,
if he's right for Django.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe by 6 he turns into this little hipster, all right, in black T-shirts and electrical tape. Then I'll show him Pulp Fiction, all right. But drinking coffee, okay, fine.
The gourmet shit.
But Reservoir Dogs, I'll start him off with that one. But no, he doesn't have anything to do with that. No, I'm not one of those guys that like loses his balls, all right, the minute he has a kid, especially when it comes to his work and everything like that. That's not me. I'm making it for him when he's 25 and he's like proud of his dad and proud of his oeuvre. All right, you know. But okay, so it wouldn't affect like it doesn't it wouldn't affect me as far as like the material I'm going to do, or I mean, but you know, it could affect me as a human being. All right, yeah, it could affect. Now, exactly what that will be and how that will manifest itself, I don't know, and I can't even predict. I mean, but I am officially living through all the cliches you hear about the when the, you know, cynical guy, you know, has a kid. I mean, I see Leo's name just written on a piece of paper and I burst into tears. All right, you know, just, you know, it's like, you know, and it's just great. It's just like I look at him and it's like, either I'm just laughing hysterically because he's just really, really funny, or I just look at him and I just burst into tears because he just touches me so much. Yeah, it's wonderful.
We've had a lot of fun talking about the Oscars in our conversations, and your competition with Mark Boal and how much fun that was as you were going through Hurt Locker.
Yeah.
And so we've recently learned that one of your greatest collaborators, Samuel L. Jackson, is going to get a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Oh, yeah.
We
finally,
absolutely, but
yeah.
long overdue.
That's going to be a good award ceremony. Like Elaine May's getting one, you know. Yeah, it's going to be a good ceremony.
What in a perfect world should Sam Jackson have won his Oscar for?
Oh, shit. Frankly, Steven. Yeah, I think that you should have won the Oscar for Steven.
I agree with that. Mm-hmm. You know, anytime it's announced that a certain actor is going to join your cast, especially if it's someone you've never worked with, I always think, oh my God, what is he going to do with this person? There are a lot of actors I love that I have a hard time imagining them in one of your films. Like Tom Hanks. I have a soft spot in my heart for Tom Hanks. And whenever I mention to people like Tom Hanks and Tarantino, they go, no, I wouldn't, like you couldn't put Tom Hanks and Quentin Tarantino. Are there some actors that you love, but you just think, dude, you don't belong in my movies, man? Or is that more of a challenge?
Well, okay, but that, you know, I mean, that's like, you know, you listen to these podcasts where somebody is like, okay, well, what if Redford were to play that guy? No, Redford couldn't play that. Redford doesn't have this. You know, Matt Damon. No, man, Matt Damon couldn't. Like, fuck you. You guys don't know. You guys don't know how to cast people. All right. Well, like,
So
you know, they're
listening to our show.
listening to our show.
You listen to ReelBlend a lot, I can tell.
You know, they're actors. If I had the right part, Tom Hanks would be fantastic. I mean, like, there's nothing that really comes to mind that I've written so far that Tom Hanks would be right for, or else he probably would have played the role, all right? Because he would like to work with me, and I'd like to work with him. But but with the right role, yeah, I would plug him in a second, and and it's like, I mean, sometimes I'm not quite as much into playing with an actor's persona and either stretching it or accentuating it the way I was in the past. I'm not like that at all anymore. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that I've kind of left behind in like the 30 years I've been doing. It's one of the biggest things I've left behind in the last, I guess, everything after Kill Bill. I kind of more or less left that behind because it's like, I used to be a thing where like, I would be so into an actor that I would completely change the character in order to work with this groovy actor or that groovy actor. Now I don't feel that way at all. Now I'm all about my characters. It's all about the characters. The actors are playing my characters, and it's like I have a great time with my actors and I love my actors, but the character isn't what's important. That's what's important. And so it's like, so it's less about playing off of anybody's image or their persona or what they've done in the past. I mean, every once in a while, I guess that can work out. But for the most part, no, I'm just about like putting the right actor in the right character. Sure.
Quentin, I found this really interesting, going back to Hollywood for a second, and I don't know if this is interesting or not, but I found it interesting as I watched it. Kurt Russell is on screen in the film as one character, and then he's a narrator, and the narrator is not the same character he's playing in the movie.
Yeah.
Can you speak on that? I found that to be really interesting, because I guess when I first saw it, I just assumed it was his
the same
character.
guy, yeah.
But I wonder, can you speak on the distinction between those two? Because it's interesting, you have Kurt on screen, and then you have him narrating, but it's not the same guy.
I just didn't take it that seriously. I mean, it was like I needed a narrator, and I kind of didn't want to do it, but I was prepared to do it if I had to. And Kurt's got a really terrific voice, and I had about like 4 people come down and do the narration.
Can we ask who?
I don't want to say. All right, but I had about 4 different people come down, and they were all just happy to come down and help me out and everything. And then, but when Kurt came in, I just knew he was the guy. But there was also an aspect about Kurt doing. One, he sounded good doing it, so that's that. But again, Kurt is the youngest you can be and actually be one of these actors that we're talking about, because he was 12 when he Lost in Space, and he actually acted on The High Chaparral. He actually acted on Bonanza. He actually acted on The Virginian and on these shows. He was like a boy getting older, but he was he is like in that same vein as a Burt Reynolds or a Michael Parks or these kind of guys, except he just was so young when he started. But not only that, his dad was one of those guys. His dad was like a cowboy actor. William Whitney came to his house and had dinner a couple of times. And Kurt just kind of worked with everybody. I mean, it's like, just when I think I've talked to Kurt about every actor he could possibly work with, and I find some old Disney movie, he worked with Nick Adams? I've never talked to Kurt about working with Nick Adams. That's really, really cool. So there was an aspect of him being of him bearing witness, because he was there at that time. I knew he was playing a character in the movie, but I didn't take that seriously. I didn't think it was a thing.
Cool. Just curious.
Not to keep dwelling on your final film, and this is not about plot or details, but are there, since there's so many actors that are, we identify them as Quentin Tarantino ensemble members, has anyone come to you and said like, hey, make sure I'm in that last one?
I think since Harvey Keitel gave me my career and Sam Jackson, all right, I think they would be nonplussed if they were in the last movie, and I can appreciate that. So I can definitely appreciate that. But no one, they don't know no one knows what it's gonna be.
Gotcha.
I spoke to Harvey Keitel the other day, and I asked him, as one does, and I said, I've been fascinated with the Wolf ever since Pulp Fiction came out. Like in the course of 15 minutes, I have wondered, is this guy? he answers the phone at a party. It's 30 minutes away. I'll be there in 10. He shows up, under 9 minutes. Yeah.
Tuxedo at 7:30 in the morning.
And I said, I asked him, I said, who is this guy? I said, I would watch another movie for that. I would watch a TV show with this guy. And Harvey Keitel says, I've been asking Quentin that for years. He said, if you ever see Quentin Tarantino, you should ask him because I want to know. So now that I'm here with you, who is the Wolf? Who is that guy?
He's a guy who solves problems. It's not that, okay, it's not that they couldn't have cleaned the car without him. It's they were panicking and they didn't know what to do, and they needed an adult presence who had who's able to solve problems. Say, look, calm down. It's fine. We have 12 minutes. We're fine. Okay, just sweep up the blood, put the blankets on the car, and let's go. Okay, he's actually a director. He's coming in where there's chaos and showing them methodically. He's not stressing out, and he's just looking at it and just giving them direction. And then they go and they follow his direction, and then they get out of there when they're supposed to.
Quentin, as we're sitting here in the New Beverly, I'm sure you've talked about this a bunch before, but I would love to just know the history in terms of you wanting to buy it, in terms of wanting to keep it always on film. And I'm also just interested in knowing how you keep your film collection, the actual film collection itself. And is it do you keep it in storage? I'm just very interested to know kind of that whole process. And when you play a print here that's from your own collection, is that a security thing? It's delivered to make sure it's not being scratched. I'm just very interested to know that whole process of kind of how you operate.
Yeah, it's not the Andromeda strain here. I mean, this is a working business, all right? So we're not, we did good care of our prints, but it's not that rarefied air. They're thrown in a pickup truck usually and driven from a vault to here, all right? I've been coming here, basically ever since I was driving. All right. So I guess around, I think I started driving around 78 or 79. And I drove all over Los Angeles County and past it to go to see this weird screening here. And I'm not here, but this weird screening. Before I could even drive, I was taking the bus to crazy places, crazy grindhouses just to see Rolling Thunder one more time, before it came out on video. And I'd follow movies all over town. This place started, I think, Sherman started as a revival house around 78. And so I think around like 79 or 80 is when I started coming down here. And that was when, there was a lot of revival houses to choose from. The New Art was was operating full as a revival house. So was the Fox Venice in Venice. I saw my first Godard movies during a Godard festival at the Fox Venice. And then there was the Vista was either showing foreign films or had a revival schedule. And then there'd be other weird times, like the El Rey was playing. There'd be those were the mainstays. And then there was also UCLA and a Bing Museum. But those were the mainstays. But then another year would happen with two other little revival houses would open for a year and a half. And so I was just always a fan of going to revival cinemas. But the thing that really hit hard with the New Beverly after seeing a ton of movies here. I think Grace is here, my first girlfriend. She's here, and we say, yeah, there you are. I thought that was you. All right. Much to her chagrin, we saw Sallow, 120 Days of Sodom here. She's wearing a mask because she's still mad at me. All right, no COVID thing, all right? I think I drug her here to see King of New York, too. And it was annoying because I quoted the movie the entire running time, all right? Especially when Larry Fishburne talked. All right, but the thing is, though, after Reservoir Dogs came out, it did really great when it played here. And then out of the blue, Sherman started showing it every Saturday at midnight. And it became a permanent midnight show for about a year and a half or 2 years. And it held for 2 years. Then just as it was running out of steam and they were getting ready to get rid of it, that's when Pulp Fiction opened. And then it played for another 2 years as a midnight screening. And so, so just the idea that during those 4 years, anytime I want, I could just drive down Beverly Boulevard and just look at the marquee and Reservoir Dogs every Friday and Saturday at midnight. Just made me feel like $1 million. It just made me feel great. And to know that I had done a movie that, could hold a spot at midnight for that long, and that it had that kind of fans, and that people could always see it. It was already out on video for a long time by that point, but you could still see it on 35 millimeter here. And one of the reasons that I wanted to keep it film was because that's
It's better.
Yeah, it's better, I think. All right. But especially about the fact that that was right when things were changing over to digital. And so, like the American Cinematheque and all these people are like, well, just the reality of the business now is that you have to be able to show digital and 35 millimeter. And I go, you know what? I'm going to prove those guys fucking wrong.
Hell yeah.
I'm going to show that that's a reality if you accept it, but that's not necessarily the reality, and we do it. We do it.
Always on film.
Yeah, always on film.
Always on film.
Well, it was also the whole thing where it's like, something was showing it here or something was showing there, and I go, okay, well, is it on film? I mean, if it's just digital, I can watch the DVD at home. I don't need to watch television in public, all right? And so there was always this guessing game now when it plays other places. Here, no guessing game.
Quentin, you have said in past when you sit down to write a screenplay, you don't know the ending. You're writing it in order, and you talked about Bastards. You didn't know where you're going to go with the ending of that. And people are going to realize when they read this book, like, we're going to all now follow you as an author, Quentin Tarantino, a successful author, because I think you're a terrific writer.
Oh, thank you.
Was it the same case with this?
No, I knew what the ending was going to be of this. Yeah, I knew it was going to be the Trudy ending, yeah.
Oh, did you? And then also, I just want to talk to you about ending a scene versus ending a chapter. Mm-hmm. Were they significantly different for you? Because I was intrigued by where certain scenes carried out longer than we knew from the film.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. I mean, it's different from ending a scene because the movie is a collection of a lot of different scenes, but it's similar to ending a set piece. Because when you end a set piece, it ends on with a strong stroke. Well, hopefully, it ends with a strong stroke that sums up that little set piece, and now you move on to something else. I mean, you want to come up with a really cool line at the end of a chapter that both like finishes the chapter but hooks you in to the next chapter, or hooks you into the next time you come back if it is going to hop to another story.
There's a great little moment in the book where Cliff comes to see a movie here.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, looking at the audience, where did he sit?
Oh, he sat. He's sitting where that guy sits. All right. The guy in front of you, Fred. This guy. Yeah. This guy. Yeah. So, Reggie. That's Reggie. Okay. Yeah. All right. I was gonna say the guy with the mohawk. No, this is the lights hitting your head in the wrong way. No, he's sitting where Reggie's sitting. All
Reggie,
right.
you're in Cliff's seat.
Yeah.
Why does Cliff sit there?
Well, because he likes to be close up to the screen. He doesn't want to sit in the front row. He wants to. Second row is maybe too close, but third row is perfect. And he throws his moccasin feet over the over the front of it, just like Sharon. All right, and watches the Carol Baker double feature.
Speaking of coming to the New Beverly, you and Roger Avery were here last week for Pulp Fiction at a midnight showing. You just showed up and watched it with the audience. And obviously one of my favorite moments in Hollywood is watching Margot Robbie, Sharon Tate watch herself and wait for the laughs and wonder whether or not they're going to laugh at her pratfall and things like that. I was curious, as you sit in the theater all these years later and you watch an audience watch Pulp Fiction, what are your favorite scenes to watch the audience react to? Are there still ones that like you can't wait? I mean, even though it's been out for so long, everyone here probably had already seen it. But what are the scenes you can't wait to hear reactions for in that one?
Yeah, that's interesting, actually, because I always hear how I never go to I don't make it out to the Tarantino midnights that often, and I've heard that the Pulp Fiction audience is really raucous. I think me and Roger stunned everybody, so I think they were off their feed that night. All right, they were like what the fuck's going on? We didn't sign up for this. What the hell? All right, so I think we kind of fucked them up a little bit. So we didn't get the normal response.
What would be a normal reaction for that film like that you love to watch?
Well, I think I get. Okay, well, if you were asking me closer to when the film came out or in the first 3 years, it would probably be my answer would probably be different. But now I guess it's probably either the dancing scene, the twist contest, and then the whole them blowing Marvin's head off in the car and and all covered in blood fighting about it.
It was interesting when you talked about Kurosawa in the book and how he had to come along at that time. You know, like that generation was right for him.
Oh, the turgid melodrama time of the 50s, yeah.
Absolutely. Like that decade fit for him. And I think that you're one of those filmmakers in the 90s who came along at the right time. Yeah. You absolutely spawned a ton of Tarantino clones, essentially. Did you ever watch any of their films and at least say like, oh, they did that pretty well?
Oh, yeah. No, I watched a bunch of them, actually. I saw a lot of them. You know, people were like saying, hey, does that piss you off, man, that, 8 heads in a duffel bag or, whatever it was. Yeah.
Or Boondock Saints.
Yeah, Boondock Saints or something like that. And like, no, I was flattered. Look, I didn't think anybody, I thought I was better than all those guys. I thought my stuff was actually ultimately funnier. All right. But I graded them on an interesting curve. Hey, that's pretty good. Oh, that was a good one. That was some good dialogue. Oh, that was funny. Oh, that was a neat bit. But the thing about it was, because I always looked at Pulp Fiction as sort of, like I said almost earlier, but I don't think I 100% said it. That my gangster film, Pulp Fiction, and even Reservoir Dogs to some degree, was to Scorsese's style of gangster film, which was the style of gangster film at that time, especially by the early 90s. My film was to them what Sergio Leone's Dollars films were to the John Ford films, were to the Raoul Walsh films, were to the Howard Hawks movies. And I literally always, I even referred to like Pulp Fiction as like a rock and roll spaghetti western, and that's why they wear suits and they wear this, these like kind of costumes that I'm putting them in, because they're like my knights, and this is their type of armor, and then even all that surf music just seemed like rock and roll, Morricone music to me, and but the thing about that really showed the effect that Leone had is, he did his 3 or 4 movies, 5 movies that he did, but then he started an entire subgenre, and then there was 300 spaghetti westerns that wouldn't have existed without Leone's film that came out in the wake. And so then finally, for me, all of a sudden now for 5 years, every gangster movie, has this patina from my films, and they have quirky, cool music in it, and they talk about TV shows. They talk about all this shit that they never talked about in gangster films. That actually made me feel more like a Leone-esque success than anything else. Was just the fact that like he had a bunch of people filling in the subgenre that he created. The fact that for about 5 years there, that was the situation with me. Now, my favorite of all of them, easily, Love in a 45.
Oh,
The
nice.
Cardi Tarkington one. I thought that was the best script of them. It was the wittiest. I really liked that one a lot.
Excellent.
Piggybacking on that idea, because you have permeated pop culture in the way you have, you don't have to watch many movies to see other people just straight up referencing your films. I think Captain America and Winter Soldier, it's in the book, the things he needs to learn about. The one that always shocks me when I forget it and then re-remember it is that there's literally a Pulp Fiction reference in fucking Space Jam.
Oh yeah, uh-huh.
So I'm just like whenever
there's one in Ants too.
So like, what is it when you're randomly watching a movie for your own enjoyment and then they reference your movies? What is that feeling like?
It's rarely a surprise, especially when it's something like they usually put it in the trailer. All right.
Yeah.
But I remember, I think it was one of the last Shreks, all right, when all the Disney princesses get together.
Movies.
Yeah, when the Disney princesses get together, they play that Kill Bill. Dun, dun, boom, ba, ba, boom, ba, ba, boom, ba, boom, boom. I'm like, well, I know where that's fucking coming from. And it's all the Disney princesses like looking all badass walking down a hallway. Like, hey, that was pretty cool.
Did one of them have the tracksuit?
Yeah. No, they didn't have the tracksuit. They didn't have but there's a Kill Bill theme going on. Well, and also I took it as I took it as a high compliment that I saw when Team America came out. I saw it like 5 or 6 times. All right, and that's a movie that nobody in Hollywood wanted to be referenced in because they skewered everybody. All right, but when then they get the Team America gets together and then they play that Kill Bill music to pump you up, I go, oh my God, I'm the only Hollywood person I'm the only person in town that's referenced respectfully in Team America.
I read Matt Damon says he signs more pictures of the doll from Team America than he does of himself.
Matt Damon. I remember I was going out with the girl. Why are they clowning him so bad?
Quentin, this is something I've always wanted to ask you. I've never had the chance to ask these before. The long tracking shot that you do in Pulp Fiction when Jules and Vincent arrive at Brett's apartment and they go down the hallway and they have the conversation away from the camera. It's one of my favorite scenes you've ever directed. It's brilliantly written. I was wondering what your memories were of that shot, how many times it took to get the oneer, what challenges you ran into, and just kind of the idea of leaving the camera down the hallway and obviously having us listen to their conversation. I just always thought that was an interesting, really interesting piece of information.
I can't remember if it was either 9 or 13 takes. I can't remember which one it was, and Stacy might remember. All right, I think it was 9 or 13 takes, something like that. And well, the thing about it was, a buddy of mine lived in that apartment building, Bob Morawski, who won the Oscar for Hurt Locker, who stole the Oscar from Sally for Hurt Locker. All right. But yeah, we're friends now too. But we were buddies then, and he lived in that building, and I always thought that building was really, really cool. The funny thing about it was after we shot the movie, while we were editing the movie, was when the Northridge earthquake happened, and it leveled that building. So that building is no longer there anymore. It was right by the Denny's. That's right by Channel 5. Oh, wow. It was right there. Anyway, that building doesn't exist anymore. And so I'm glad I caught it in Pulp Fiction. But the thing about it, though, was when we went down there, it also was a building that it had long halls that way, so you could actually literally take them from the elevator and do the whole loop without it being contrived. But back then, also, I was also into being, doing sequences that were remote, that were back away. And we see the two characters, like in Pulp Fiction, in Reservoir Dogs, when you see Harvey Keitel and Tim Roth down the hallway. Yeah. I was into doing Godardian shit like that back then. And I was really into frames inside of frames, and putting characters inside of frames, and not just doing your shot, my shot, your shot, my shot. I was into tableaus, that put them at a distance, and we look at it this way, and then that just worked out perfect. All right, for that scene, because that would have been boring to just hang out with them by the front of the door, but then that kind of brought a nice little bit to the last little part of the scene. And actually it didn't play Godardian because it just sounded like, okay, no, their business is at the door, but they're going to finish this one piece of business before they get down to their real business.
They even say, let's get into character.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It's amazing.
Danny DeVito wanted me to cut that part out.
Wait, what, really?
Why?
Yeah, well, he just thought the scene went on too long. He was, okay, so would they go and they get to the door and maybe cut that part out there? I'm not goofing on him. He has the right to say anything, He was one of the producers on the film.
And say, yeah, okay.
Well, I probably doesn't remember it now, all right. But at the moment when you're studying it, do we really need 12 minutes here?
One of the beautiful things about novelizations, which you were discussing, is that quite often they're written off of the initial draft, before things get shot. And so I don't want to spoil too much, but there's big changes in this film. And one involves Trudy on the phone with Rick, essentially. Now, I was stunned to see that she's on the poster holding the phone.
Yeah.
Did you shoot that scene? Did you?
Yeah, that scene exists.
Does it really?
Yeah, that scene exists, yeah.
Wow. And was it ever going to be part of?
Well, when we shot it, we thought it was going to be, Look, that was my favorite scene in the script. So, the idea that wouldn't be in the movie was unfathomable. That was my favorite scene in the script. I think it was probably Leo's favorite scene that he shot. We were in tears. It was the only time. I've got misty-eyed every once in a while shooting this scene versus that scene. But that scene, I mean, like me and Julia were in tears at the time as we finished every take. So and we were just really proud of that sequence. So the idea that it wouldn't be in the movie was just, what the fuck you're talking about? Of course it's going to be in the film. But the reason it's not in the film is it's a twofold reason. One, it's an ending. It seems like an ending to the movie. Also, which actually was okay in the script, because in the script I looked at as everything that happens in February as part of a 3-act structure, and then the stuff that happens on the night of the murder as an epilogue. But that was the wrong way to think about it once we started putting the movie together. We go, no. The stuff that happens in August isn't an epilogue, it's the 3rd act. We got to look at it that way. And so, and they pulled off the scene. The scene's terrific, so it's not about them. But when we watched a really worked on assembly, something after me and Fred had gone through it, really hard, and we're really happy with it. When we watched it, we realized after the Spawn Ranch, that ends the February section. That's just, there's no coming back from that. That is the ending of that. And now we can't just end it with the Spawn Ranch. So the idea is after Spawn Ranch, we have to wrap up February as soon as we possibly can. And then once we do, then we go into August. So it was like, we just realized, like, no, there's just, the Spawn Ranch is the scene. That ends that story for that day. And that happens a lot in movies. Like you've dropped scenes that are really terrific, but it's like, but a timeline imposes itself on the cut, and if it falls outside of that timeline, then no matter how good it is, it's got to go.
Oh, that's fascinating.
I'm glad Sean brought up that chapter, because there's a paragraph in that chapter, the last chapter, that meant a lot to me, and I actually mentioned it to the guys earlier today. And it's after a book filled with Rick Dalton just bitching about his career isn't where he wants it to be, and he's not getting the roles he wants, and why is Jim Stacy the lead over this? And at the end of the book, in this short little paragraph, he says, you know what, like, life's not that bad, and I've made some really cool movies, and I've got to kiss some beautiful co-stars, and I've got to travel the world. And he kind of pauses and he goes, maybe I don't really have anything to, like, maybe it's okay. Maybe.
Well, yeah, it's like, it's a situation. I don't want to go deep into that. Literally is the end of the book. All right. It's nothing that deep, but there was something moving about it. It's not deep, it's not profound, but there's something moving about this little girl making him realize that seeing his situation with more gratitude.
Is there anyone that's ever done that for you?
Not the way you mean it, or not in a context like that, but okay, I'll give one. This is a bad example, but it did ring a bell. When you do a 4-day movie press junket, it's not easy. I mean, it's not working construction, wrecking a house and wrecking out the.
We're doing our best, man.
Yeah. No.
We do this because we do the TV ones too.
Yeah. It's like it's fine. There's a lot harder jobs than that, but it takes a lot out of you, and especially at the beginning of it when you know, okay, I have 4 days coming, and now I'm just arriving at the Four Seasons. Again, don't cry a river for me. All right, but I'm arriving at the Four Seasons, and I know all this is in front of me. And so you just kind of okay, and it's never that bad, but again, you're looking up at the mountain, and you still have to climb the mountain. So you're a little, when you get to the hotel and get ready to start this whole thing that's going to go on for the next 9 hours today. And so I'm kind of feeling that trepidation when I did Kill Bill. So I'm getting ready to start this whole project. And it's not just even these 4 days at the Four Seasons. You're going to go all around the planet Earth and do this. So this is literally just the beginning of it. And so I'm feeling that kind of dread about what's going to happen and steeling myself up for it. But then I see David Carradine. And he hasn't done a big movie like this in a long time. And he's done press for a lot longer than I ever have, but he's pissing his pants. He's so fucking excited. He's so fucking excited. He can't wait to talk about Kill Bill. He's so happy to be Bill. And he is going to have everybody's ear for, he's going to go all around the world, for the next 4 months. And he fucking can't wait. All right. And it was like, yeah, I got to look at it like David Carradine. I mean, I don't think all that makes me the most jaded asshole in the world. All right. But having said that, I was taking it for granted. And then he showed me, no, don't fucking take it for granted. This is a special moment, and just, appreciate it. You've got the camera, you've got the microphone, you've got their attention. Go with it.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I love that.
Quentin, one of my favorite moments in the book is something that was so relatable. And I'll keep it vague in the sense that you describe that Roman Polanski wanted the audience to tilt their head in a certain way while watching Rosemary's Baby. Like he frames a shot in the film specifically so that the audience is like going like this. I was curious, in terms of your filmography, have you ever had intentions of having audiences move their heads like that? And are there other instances of that you've experienced as just a film fan where you've moved your head in a scene, kind of look around the frame a little bit?
No, I've made the audiences do things against their will, though. All right.
We all try to look in that briefcase.
Yeah. Just because I can, all right? Just for the exact reason why Roman does it. It's like I go, oh, I got them to laugh at that, all right? Or I got them to do this. Why? Just because I wanted to make 300 strangers do my bidding. I feel that's the job of a director, is to manipulate all of you to do things you would not do if you had better sense. All right? But you're under my control right now.
I think we have time for one more. And then, of course, all these people are going to want to listen to the chapter reading and then get their book signed. So I want to thank you on behalf of the show for coming. And
my pleasure. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you guys coming down from New York and everything to do this.
Well, I said we had time for one more. The book is filled of great insights into the industry, like we have been talking about with all these questions that we bring up. And one in particular was that Rick, and you guys know this from the movie, keeps getting approached with the Great Escape story. And how close were you to getting it? And then he finally explains that he was never going to, for all the different reasons that they never, and you never cast the fourth person on the list. But then you make a new list. Yeah. And when I read that, I thought this industry is so crushing. Is there truth to that? Is when you're writing from that?
Oh, that's completely true.
Is it really?
Yeah. No, you don't. It's like you're doing a big epic and you have 4 people on the list. By the time you've been turned down by the first 3, then the fourth one, wow. Well, what the fuck are we doing here? A high school play? No, come on. Let's rethink this whole fucking thing. All right, But I think the Three Georges monologue that he gives is one of my better monologues. I think it's a really, really good monologue, and I think it finally found the right home. All right, at that point in the piece. But one of the things I also like about it, because it's easy to have a little fun at Rick's expense. All right, because he's that kind of character. It's easy to have fun at his expense through the movie, and even throughout the book to some degree or another. But that actually shows that he's actually more self-aware than that if you're not taking him seriously enough that you might think. And he's but it also reveals the anguish that he has about it. I mean, it's not real anguish if people didn't bring it up for the next 8 years, and like they say about it, it's like, yeah, okay, so Jim Stacy brings it up on Lancer. So is that true about you almost getting the McQueen part? But I mean, he's had to put up with that, he does the Green Hornet, and Van Williams is sitting there in his full Green Hornet regalia. So is it true that you almost got the Steve McQueen role? Or Ron Eli half naked in his, or practically naked in his loincloth as Tarzan. So is it true that you almost got the McQueen role? He's had to answer to it all these times. And now, if he almost did get it, that would be different. Yeah. He uses the example of Caesar Denova, all right, who almost got the part of and Ben-Hur, as opposed to Charlton Heston. And he goes, well, look, he almost did get it. That would be legitimate. Okay, but I never stood a fucking chance. And here's why I never stood a chance. And he goes through every reason why every one of those actors would have gotten it before him. And he's right about everything he says.
Yeah. Well, I think we're out of time
Yeah.
because we had a lot of things to get to. We want to thank Quentin Tarantino for joining the ReelBlend podcast.
Thank
of
you.
course, and for coming out to the
Thank
new
you,
Beverly's
guys.
to spend time with all of us. Hope you guys enjoyed it.